Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, GlitchInTheCode, and we're back in one of these videos. YouTube has a serious problem, and a certain YouTuber named PenguinZ0, or otherwise known as Moist Critical on Twitch, made a video on it, and I'm basically just going to be covering this. All of this does not affect me, but it will affect how I'm going to go forward with my YouTube career. So yeah, let's get this going.
Everything you're doing right now, I don't care how important it is, I have news that'll blow it out of the water. And trust me, you're going to want to get this sitting down. So if you're in the operating room watching this, it's time to put down the scalpel and pay attention. YouTube has just made a massive change to the platform, and in standard YouTube fashion has done a horrible job at communicating it to the community. So it's up to me, Ace Reporter Charles here, to tackle this topic from the front lines, just riding through like Paul Revere lighting the lanterns, letting you all know that another awful set of changes are coming to YouTube that have already overnight tanked some creators' source of income from their channels, demonetized like half of their videos with no explanation, and more channels are soon to follow as this continues to roll out.
So this brings me to the first thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the demonetization of a whole bunch of these YouTubers, and how it's basically just their entire livelihoods are just going down the drain. I'm pretty sure YouTubers like Markiplier or Jacksepticeye make their entire living off of this website. I could be wrong, but something like this could seriously, ruin someone who makes their entire living off of this website. And, this does also, crush some of the smaller creators' dreams in a way, because in my case, at least, I wanted to be able to make a living off of YouTube. I'm not even monetized yet, and they're making it ungodly difficult to get anything monetized. So, yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to bring up.
And I'll let it be known right away here that yes, my channel has been hit extremely hard by this new shadow policy that they've slid into the equation here.
Nobody is safe.
The policy is, if you say any swear word or anything less than proper in the first 8 seconds of a video, you instantly get demonetized for it no matter what. There is no wiggle room. If you say anything that's not squeaky clean Weenie Hut Jr. and you let that rip in the first 8 to 15 seconds of that video, well, you're just getting blasted, and there's nothing you can do about it.
This part I can sort of get behind, and I could probably just easily follow like anyone else on this platform. But it gets worse.
Now, to a lot of you, hearing that's probably not surprising, because the previous policy that all YouTubers were playing ball with was the first 30 seconds you couldn't say fuck. You couldn't say anything super hard like fuck. Because if you did, you'd likely get demonetized. But now, it applies to the first 8 seconds, and all profanity is being treated equally, except for a couple of exceptions like hell and damn, I guess. Maybe even ass. You might be able to squeeze a little ass in there in the beginning, I suppose, if the YouTube Illuminati is feeling generous with their policy enforcement that day.
The way Critical describes it here is absolutely magnificent. I mean, it is just top-notch. It describes perfectly how YouTube's policies are very irregularly enforced. Past examples of this being, literal animal abusers on YouTube, and YouTube did absolutely nothing about it until, I think, authorities, actual authorities, got involved, which is absolutely pathetic, and YouTube should have done something about that as soon as they found out, really.
Now, while that's all pretty clear about just not using any profanity whatsoever in the first 8 seconds, it gets a little muddy when it starts talking about a focal usage of profanity throughout the video. It says, such as a mention in every sentence, but that's not exactly how they enforce it. For a lot of the videos that have been demonetized, at least on my side, it's not like I'm going around hitting them with Saints Row dialogue. It's just very confusing what's actually triggering this new demonetization wave that's sweeping through like a plague. For example, RT Game, again, isn't exactly a creator known for intense swearing and getting out of control and unhinged and saying profanity in every sentence like this policy here. And yet, so many of his videos just got demonetized. And he's also not someone that does a whole lot of cursing and swearing like a sailor in the first, minute of his videos either. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's not as clear as these rules seem to think that it is.
It would help if YouTube themselves knew what the hell they were doing.
Also, this rule applies retroactively to every piece of content ever made, even as far back as 2007. So, half of my catalog of videos is now demonetized. This happened to a ton of creators, and because it's a new policy, yet every old video ever made now has to play by those rules, so it ended up with so much being demonetized. But it's very vague when it comes to the enforcement here. Let me give you just two quick examples from two new videos I made. Both of these were monetized as of 12 hours ago. So this first one is just called Good News. It is legitimately just going over very wholesome topics. The focal point is not on swearing, it's not a potty mouth kind of video. It's just going over wholesome topics. But in the intro, I said shit pretty early.
Gonna skip the part where he actually plays the video because it's not necessarily all that important.
So me saying shit here is clearly what triggered the demonetization flag. Okay, a little upsetting, but they've now made these rules clear.
You see, the issue with that is the fact that they didn't make it clear. If they really wanted to make it clear, they would have thrown a little notification pop up in YouTube Studio like everything else that they have in YouTube Studio. For example, whenever the YouTube handles came out, it threw a little piece in YouTube Studio. They couldn't have done that for any other news. Really? And this is something that he himself talks about as well later in the video.
And they're retroactive, so I get it. But here's an example of one that makes no sense at all by their new rules. This is me talking about Godslap Issue 2 being out. There's no profanity at all, not even low-level profanity. I don't mention ass or butt or anything like that at all. I'm just talking about Godslap and getting excited. It's a comic book series we've worked on for a long time, and I made this video just going over everything and letting you all know that it's available at godslapbook.com. This wasn't supposed to be an ad for it, but it's a great example here because there is no profanity used throughout this video until 5 minutes and 37 seconds into it after giving a plot summary for issue 1. So then what could have possibly triggered this demonetization? Is it using profanity at all that's going to result in demonetization? Because that'd be very concerning if so.
And if that is truly the case, then YouTube quite literally has a separate platform for children using the YouTube app. It's a little not so very well-known thing, but I'm sure you've heard of it. It's called YouTube Kids. I think YouTube needs a little refresher on the platforms that they have and why they have them.
The best guess I can muster is they must have been really upset about the animation because we had an animation made for issue 2 and it's a pretty gory animation, so it comes in at around a minute into the video and there is some animated gore and violence. But that's a minute into it, and again, that's not the focus of it, and I wouldn't think anyone would be disturbed or shocked by the content. It's not anything that's, egregious or over the top. It's just violence in a comic book and animated format. So would that really now result in demonetization for any channel that has anything that's even close to this level of violence? Because that's really strict. What you see there is something you'd find in any M-rated or even T-rated games sometimes. It's not that extreme. I don't see why that would warrant being demonetized, but it is a bit scary because this has all happened overnight with no explanation, and it's not just, bad words and things like that. This applies to so much other shit that they're now enforcing heavily.
Basically, none of my videos have had anything happen to them except for copyright claims, and those were for songs that were permitted on YouTube by the author of those songs. This is the part where I basically say, this doesn't really affect me, and that's simply because I am not a part of the monetization program. It's either that or they just simply don't care about me because I'm such a small channel. But regardless of if it affects me or not, it's still infuriating even to me, someone who could probably go their whole life without caring about this. It pisses me off.
But it's not just for getting a little wacky with your language in videos that'll result in demonetization now. If you're getting a little wacky with your game choice, if you're a gaming YouTuber,
well, shit.
Or you can get demonetized for it, and even age restricted in some cases. If you're playing a game that's kind of violent, you're very likely to get demonetized for it. And if there's bad language in that game, especially early on in the video you make covering that game, you're likely to be demonetized for it. And in fact, Callisto Protocol is the most recent example. You can get age restricted for it too.
Speaking of age restrictions, just to share a little bit of a anecdote from my time here on YouTube. If you know the video that I made called Just Listen to That, I believe it's in the 80s of my game clips, and it is The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And all it is just the main menu title sequence thing where, the title sequence is just zooming out. That's all it's doing. It's originally, that video was titled Just Fucking Listen to That. The word fucking gave me an age restriction. To me, that just made absolutely no sense. All I was doing was just emphasizing, it's such a nostalgia blast for me. I grew up with Oblivion, and, it's one of the best games to ever exist, and I'm getting an age restriction because YouTube is a bunch of pansies and can't handle a curse word in the title.
Callisto Protocol was deemed too gory, it's too much, this is very unholy stuff we're seeing here. So anyone that made videos on Callisto Protocol got age restricted for it, including me. A couple of them I know slid under the radar, but for the most part, anything that had Callisto Protocol did get age restricted, which is almost poetic because you might remember that Callisto Protocol is inspired by Dead Space, and Dead Space 2 had the worst marketing campaign of all time called Your Mom Hates Dead Space, and it was all about how offended mothers were getting at Dead Space. It was very silly, but now it's like become reality for YouTube. YouTube is now that Dead Space mom when it comes to violent video games. It's pretty pathetic, but what's the saddest part about this whole situation is YouTube's refusal to be transparent with this and make it clear that these policy changes are coming. I had to find out, as did everyone else, after being hit by it and then doing digging, because anytime there's a policy change, YouTube treats it like a government secret, like the Krabby Patty secret formula. They just refuse to share it. So I had to learn by searching around online, talking to other creators, as well as talking directly to YouTube in order to get answers for what was going on. And even my YouTube contact wasn't aware of this until I brought it up and he did digging on his end.
It's shit like that that really makes me lose faith in this program, because the fact that Penguin Z Zero's inside man had to do digging in order to uncover the whole thing, the boogeyman behind the whole YouTube policy, everyone getting demonetized, everyone's livelihoods getting ruined. They didn't even know until they went and did digging. That simply goes to show how disorganized YouTube really is. I mean, seriously, can the people be on the same page? Or, why does the YouTube contacts have to... Why is there a barrier? A policy change like this should not, and I repeat, should not be some sort of government secret type thing like Critical was explaining. It should be shared to the creators and shared to the other people at YouTube, so that way everybody is on the same page and everybody knows what is happening before it actually happens, so that way we can, 1, prepare for it, and 2, make proper fucking decisions.
And that is absolutely not any fault of his own. That just goes to show you how split YouTube is internally, where things just aren't communicated effectively even on the inside. So how the fuck can they possibly manage to inform the community, I guess? It is so laughable. This policy is a game changer for a lot of channels. You have to completely alter your content strategy depending on what you do. Like if you play a certain game that could now be deemed a little too violent for ads. This is something that changes a lot for many creators. And you have to find out by going through fucking Twitter and then talking to people in whispers on Discord in order to figure out what was happening. That is so pathetic. The YouTube's repeated inability to communicate even their biggest changes to the platform just makes no sense. It just can't be that hard to put out clear documents letting people know what's around the corner and an estimated arrival date. I don't see what makes that so difficult and why they struggle so greatly with it. There was one article I found about this in early December, but of course there was no like set time frame for when this would actually launch, or if it was even really going to launch for sure. Because all of those things are written so vaguely, you never really know what's going to come to the platform and what's not going to. Like, it's just so frustrating to have them constantly make these awful choices without ever consulting creators or users of the platform, obviously.
It would be ridiculously easy for them to contact us too, because they have done it before in the form of those surveys that would show up on the top of YouTube Studio. And it's fucking mind-blowing, you know? Use a survey to see what we want, you know? Oh my god! Fucking Mars brain up in here. In all seriousness, though, it's as simple as just setting up a survey like they did before several times with creators, even creators as small as me. I mean, it's as simple as, you know, we log on to YouTube Studio and there's a survey. Oh, let's see. New features? I want this. Easy. Easy.
But also just not telling them either. Unfortunately, it's all just another common YouTube L here.
Anyways, that's all I had for today. It's just, you know, giving my opinion on the whole YouTube, the new YouTube policies. It's, I find it really stupid and a little pathetic that they can't keep themselves organized enough so that way the people within YouTube know what the fuck is going on. And it's what's even more unfortunate is I don't think that there is a law that says YouTube cannot do this. And in considering, you know, YouTuber is not necessarily a job in the traditional sense of employee-employer, it's not necessarily like that, unfortunately. It's, so, you know, there's nothing saying that YouTube can't just fuck everybody over, you know, just... That's all for this video. I'll talk to you in the next one. Probably gonna be a VOD or something like that. See ya.